Mr. Madison, choose the topic.
I choose business ethics.
Hello everyone, traveling through time here, and I want to talk to everyone about business ethics. Yes, that is a Billy Madison reference. So, a lot of people are really concerned and passionate about the alleged lack of business ethics these days, and I do have some sympathy with them in multiple regards. First of all, there are a lot of industries who are run and filled with lots of bad actors, and this is completely possible. It is something that capitalism does its best to prevent through institutional competition, but sometimes certain products, certain institutions can succumb to corruption and to bad actors. One that I have highlighted and that a lot of other people have highlighted recently is insulin. That's a big one. Another one is hospitals, various pharmaceuticals, and real estate. Real estate is actually a very tricky one because you can't manufacture land, and once you build on the land, once you develop the land, it is not easily manipulated or expanded upon or dynamically rearranged for a new consumer market. So, the problem with Marxism is that it can also succumb to bad actors, but those bad actors can hide themselves within this large institution, and they can kind of exist in the background, siphoning off public funds through embezzlement, systemic embezzlement. And you'll never know who the bad actors are, and you'll never know where the bad actors are, because you don't have the price mechanism. So the price mechanism tells you who and where the bad actors are in society, and in a capitalist system, it also insulates the other institutions from those bad actors, because all of the institutions are separately moving pieces. They're independently operated, which means that you can't just, let's say the CEO of the insulin company, he can't just walk into a bank and take it over. He can't take over the entire banking industry just on a whim. I mean, there's far too many banks, there's far too many independently owned and operated financial institutions to do so. It would be like trying to kill a swarm of mosquitoes with like a pair of chopsticks or something. I don't know. That's a bad analogy. Anyway, my point is that Marxism eliminates this dynamic market intentionally. That's its stated goal, is to eliminate the market. And that allows not only one bad actor to flourish, but thousands and even hundreds of thousands of bad actors to flourish in the darkness that is the state. Now, we talk a lot about transparency. Everyone loves transparency. It's a great idea. That's why people talk about it. That's why people support it. But how much transparency do we have today in the government? We can find out how much money most government institutions take in, and we can vaguely find out how they spend that money. But after that, you don't know, right? There's nothing. You just kind of hit a dead end at a certain point. And in a Marxist state, that whole lack of transparency would be 100 times worse. And the corruption and the embezzlement would be 100 times worse. And then all of those institutions, if they're getting their money through the taxpayer, and if they're centrally controlled and centrally operated, they don't care about the customer. They don't care about providing products. They don't care about providing a quality service at a quality price, because they're now part of this giant monopoly, and they're filled with bad actors who operate in the darkness. So, as a lot of people know, capitalism has something called creative destruction. And that's what I'm all about. That's what Ancapistan is all about. You should be familiar with Ancapistan if you're ended up watching this video. And Ancapistan is ultimately the creative destruction of our current modern society. I call it civilization as a product, which is kind of a very wild concept, but it's true and it's possible, and that's exactly what it is. It seems like a wild thing to even approach because not a lot of people think that's legal, and arguably it's a gray area, but constitutionally it's legal. And if a certain municipality doesn't like me, doesn't like Ancapistan, we can move to another municipality. It's really on the county and municipality level that that Ancapistan is going to hit a lot of its roadblocks and a lot of resistance. On the state and the federal level, Ancapistan is 100% constitutional and 100% legal. So, that is an amazing example of creative destruction, and it is the market trying to heal these awful real estate and rental prices because the rent is too damn high. Period. And when the rent is too damn high, the working class suffers, the middle class suffers, the amount of disposable income crumbles, and it slowly dries up like an oasis in the desert. And by reducing the rent significantly, and by opening up all of that disposable income, and efficiency increases, mind you, the fossil fuel efficiency and getting rid of cars and things of that nature will make disposable income explode and make it bloom, and the whole society will just be really remarkably prosperous, even without outside subsidy and things like that, which we're so extremely used to. It's really become like just a way of life, is subsidy and things of that nature. But that's because of our inefficiency. And that's because of a lot of these bad actors siphoning huge amounts of money out of the system and out of circulation. Most notably hospitals and pharmaceuticals, and various forms of taxation. I think the healthcare industry is actually more dangerous than the state in certain ways, because if the state is siphoning off a lot of money, at least the democracy can maybe put it back into the hands of the middle class. And I'm not a huge fan of that, but it's arguably better than what some of these pharmaceutical companies can and have been doing with just making hundreds of billions of dollars on fraudulent products. So I'm really just making this monologue and this explanation to really clarify the strong and important differences between capitalism and socialism and Marxism. Another thing, the definition of socialism is the nationalization of industry, and the nationalization of people peacefully operating within the market. That is socialism. Something like UBI is not socialism. It is capitalism that doesn't start at zero. And I'm very supportive of UBI, actually, for the record, and mainly because we live in such an inefficient society, and society is built to require massive amounts of fossil fuels just to survive. So people need a base level of income from outside source like the state, just to fulfill their monthly fossil fuel requirement, and just to fulfill all of these additional resources that they can't survive without. It's a matter of survival. And once we create Ancapistan, and once we reduce all of these massive outside material requirements by 90 to 95%, then I believe we can reduce UBI or even phase it out specifically for Ancapistan. If the government wanted to say let Ancapistan exist, but also to save money. I mean, there's a whole bunch of deals that can be made between Ancapistan and between the larger state. If we wanted some kind of tax haven on U.S. soil, then you can negotiate the state and federal money going into the city versus tax revenue going out of the city. And ideally, with a completely laissez-faire kind of economy, you would want to get both of those numbers fairly low. Also, other big news, I have decided to reduce the Ancapistan IP fee down to 1% or $3,000 per hexagon. And I was honestly expecting to do this anyway. I just wanted to make a little extra off of the first, 10 or 20 hexagons. But I figure even at 1%, you still make so much money from volume. So yeah, it's 1% now, only $3,000 per hexagon. And that should entice people a bit with those savings. Keep in mind that a lot of architectural firms will charge you 20% instead of 1%. And they usually go off of the total project cost as well. I'll just do a $3,000 per cell, which is approximately 1%. It'll vary, obviously, between interior to interior and things of that nature. But yeah, that's great news for everyone. You guys save 4%, an additional 4%. But on a more serious note, we don't have a lot of time left to make this transition and to construct all of these physical homes for ourselves, because the clock is ticking with fossil fuels. As Andrew Yang recently said during the Democratic debates, that we are 10 years too late, and he is 100% correct. I would argue we're 30 years too late. But as one of my favorite Chinese proverbs goes, the best time to plant an apple tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. The exact same logic applies to building Ancapistan. The best time to do it was 30 years ago, and the second best time to do it is today.